Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about Nemesis Game, a mystery thriller from 2003. And in Nemesis Game, the film posits the existence of, or at least that people believe in the existence of, a mysterious riddle game where if you solve enough of the puzzles, you'll be taught the design, capital T, capital D, the pattern and rules that explain all of the seeming chaos that is existence. And into this game comes Sarah, a young woman who survived a car accident that killed her mother and who hopes to understand why. Why did she live? Why did her mother, when her mother died? Sort of around her, involved in her search are her sleazy classmate at college, the comic store owner she's been playing puzzle games with, a murderer, and her own father. Now, if the involvement of a murderer might give you pause, well, you're showing more judgment than Sarah does. But she does gradually come to realise that the purpose of the riddle she's solving might not be what they purport to be. Or perhaps they are. So what is there to talk about with this film? Well, there's a few things, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking about it. So let's kick off with the first one, which is that, for me at least, I feel that when a piece of media promises some secret revelatory truth at its core, it's got two main challenges to deal with. First, it has to establish a scenario where there's convincing evidence that such a secret exists, that it is conceivable, or plausible, that there is a secret to be discovered. Second, it has to obfuscate that secret for as long as possible without ending up a jumbled mishmash of nonsense masquerading as meaning. The second requirement is the one that tends to go most spectacularly wrong, with perhaps the poster child of that being Lost, hence the name I've given to this point. But Nemesis Game manages to stumble at the first barrier, without even getting to the second. Sarah's existential crisis over her mother's death is understandable. Like, I get that. But that it turns into an obsession with riddles, to the point where she thinks like a comic book store owner might lead her to the secret of existence, is much less so. Like, that's a big stretch, movie, that you're asking me to make. A big stretch. And it gives you a bit of a mountain to climb right off the bat. And so the fact that Nemesis Game is actually quite watchable for most of its length is a testament to the efforts of the cast, who commit to this rather absurd premise and give it their all. I mean, honestly, Adrian Paul, who plays the comic book store owner in this, I've seen him be distinctly average in other projects. And I never really thought that I'd be talking him up and saying, oh, Adrian Paul's really good in this. But he and everyone else really get stuck in on this one, and they keep it engaging for almost the entire running time. The key word in that last sentence, of course, was almost. Because unfortunately, after recovering from its stumble at the start and running a good race, Nemesis Game well and truly takes a fall at the last hurdle. The final 5 minutes are utter nonsense, completely failing to deliver any answers, let alone satisfying answers, to any of the questions that it has raised. Presumably, this was intentional. There are movies out there that don't give you all the answers, or that leave the answers somewhat ambiguous, or that invite you to give your own solution to what is going on. Perhaps that was the intent here. Perhaps the idea was, well, we won't actually deliver on the answers, but we'll leave the audience buzzing with the questions and trying to come up with the answers themselves. They'll be really, maybe that's what they were aiming for. The thing is, for that to work, in my opinion, I think it has to feel like the people behind the film do have answers, and they're just asking you to take that final step of finding them. Like, for a film to present an ambiguous ending and say to you, you decide what this means, for that to work, I've got to believe, for me anyway, I've got to believe that the people behind the film had an answer in mind, or answers in mind. It's okay if there are a couple of different answers, but I think that they clearly have to, have at least come to some decision themselves. They can't just, ask a question and skip answering it. Even if they don't explicitly answer it, they have to have some kind of answer in their mind in order for it to work. And I don't get that impression here. I get the impression that they got to the, they wrote this, they created a bunch of questions, and then they went, don't know, it's too hard, can't come up with anything satisfying. We'll just leave it ambiguous, and hopefully the audience will buy that and come up with their own answers. And it just doesn't work. You can't just fob off coming up with the answers onto the audience and just go, well, you work it out. We don't need to do that, do we? Yeah, you do. You need to have some idea at the very least, and I don't feel like this movie does, which is a shame because, as I said, the cast really do give it a good effort and try to make it engaging. So I think Nemesis Game is ultimately a failure of a film, and it's notable that the director has not done another feature since, as far as I'm aware. It's mostly been TV work. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's lots of great stuff on TV. I should point that out. Lots of great stuff on TV. I think TV probably these days takes more risks than movies do. But, no one's trusted him, I guess, with a big project like this since then. Next time, in honour of the season, I'm going to tackle the notorious 1964 turkey, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Is it as bad as it is reputed to be? That is the question that we'll be answering next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you for Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.